Before anything else, let's get one thing straight. This was never just about January 7th. It was about the feeling that the story didn't actually end where they told us it did. Yes, January 7th came and went. No episode dropped. And a lot of people took that as the moment Conformity Gate officially died. Here's the problem with that conclusion. It assumes the theory was ever about a date. It wasn't. The 7th was never the payoff. It was the signal. Stranger Things has never played this game in a literal way. They don't say something happens on this day and then do the thing. They breadcrumb. They misdirect. They let fans run in the wrong direction on purpose, then reveal what the symbol actually meant after the fact. And that's exactly what happened here. January 7th failing doesn't debunk Conformity Gate. It forces us to reevaluate what the number 7 was pointing to in the first place. Because the number 7 has always meant failure in Stranger Things. The very first campaign the kids ever lose in episode 1, they lose on a 7. It was a 7. The Demogorgon got me. The dice sitting on 7 in the final credits isn't hope or mystery. It's a loss condition. 7 isn't when the story resolves. 7 is when the characters think they've won but haven't. So when people say nothing happened on the 7th, it's over, they're accidentally proving the point. The show is telling us the same thing it always has. You didn't win yet, and here's the part people are missing. Stranger Things does not end stories cleanly. It ends them wrong on purpose, then reframes them later. Will's body in Season 1 was fake. Hopper's death in Season 3 was fake. Both times the audience sat with the wrong ending before the truth dropped. So when Season 5 ends in a way that feels soft, unresolved, and strangely safe for a show that promised a dark ending, that's not bad writing by accident. That's a false ending. And false endings are exactly where Stranger Things likes to start its real twists. If Stranger Things were truly finished, the documentary would be exactly what Netflix says it is. A clean, behind-the-scenes victory lap. Cast interviews, emotional goodbyes, closure. But that's not what they're signaling. The documentary isn't called Behind the Scenes. It isn't called Making of Season 5. It's called One Last Adventure. That phrasing matters. One Last Adventure doesn't describe a recap. It describes a story beat. And what makes it stranger is that phrase already existed before the documentary announcement. It appeared in the final WSQK radio broadcast. It appeared hidden in Netflix regional bios. It appeared flipped and mirrored in the same upside-down visual language the show uses when something isn't real. That's not nostalgia marketing. That's repetition. Stranger Things doesn't repeat phrases tied to endings by accident. Now layer in the Freddy Krueger influence, which the show openly acknowledges. Dustin spells it out. Dream logic. Safety illusions killing you when you think it's over. Nightmare on Elm Street 6 was marketed as the final movie. Then Nightmare on Elm Street 7 dropped as a documentary-style film. Except the documentary wasn't real. It broke the fourth wall. Freddy crossed into the real world. That's not subtle inspiration. That's a blueprint. So when Stranger Things announces a documentary immediately after a finale that already feels muted and oddly resolved, you have to ask, why now? Why not release it months later like every other Netflix documentary? Because the documentary isn't meant to explain the ending. It's meant to destabilize it. If Conformity Gate is real, then the documentary is where the illusion starts cracking on purpose. Where behind the scenes becomes inside the spell. That's why the 7th didn't matter. The 7th was the loss. The documentary is the reset. And if that's true, the finale we watched wasn't the end. It was the moment the characters accepted the fake reality. Vecna doesn't attack when you're screaming. He attacks when you think you're safe. When you believe it's over. When you stop fighting. That's the entire point. And that's exactly how Season 5 plays out. The final battle is easy. No irreversible damage. No real cost. Comfort food after a show that trained us to expect consequences. Vecna traps people in mental spaces. He feeds them safe versions of reality. And once they accept it, that's when he wins. That's why the finale feels resolved emotionally but unfinished logically. It's designed to feel final, not true. The finale ends with routine. graduation, jobs, settling into roles. That's not victory, that's conformity. If there's one character this entire theory keeps circling back to, it's Mike. And that's not random. Mike isn't just the narrator at the end, he's the storyteller, the dungeon master, the one person whose role across the series has been about shaping meaning and turning fear into something understandable. What's strange is how different he feels in that epilogue. He's calm. Too calm. He's not questioning anything, he's not pushing back. He accepts the ending as if it's already settled, even though everything we've seen before tells us Mike never stops asking questions when something feels wrong. Then there are the visual parallels. The posture, the hair, the framing. The way he's positioned mirrors Henry Creel more than it mirrors early season Mike. That's not subtle, that's intentional. If Vecna needed one mind to anchor an illusion, Mike makes terrifying sense. He's emotionally vulnerable, he's deeply tied to Eleven, and most importantly, he's the one who can convince everyone else that the story makes sense. This also reframes the conformity idea. It's not about everyone being mind-controlled in some obvious way, it's about acceptance. About choosing the version of reality that hurts the least. Mike doesn't want to fight anymore, he doesn't want to lose anyone else. So if Vecna offers him a world where the story feels finished, where the pain is wrapped up neatly, why wouldn't he take it? And that's the scary part, because if Mike is the anchor, then breaking the illusion doesn't start with fighting Vecna again, it starts with Mike waking up. The Stranger Things finale doesn't just feel emotionally off. It breaks the internal logic the show has spent 5 seasons carefully building. This show is obsessive about rules. The Upside Down has rules. Vecna's powers have rules. And then suddenly in the finale, those rules stop mattering. Characters stop reacting the way they always have. Will, who has been a walking antenna for danger since season 1, barely registers anything after the fight. In earlier seasons, Will could sense Vecna from miles away. His neck would burn. His body would lock up. But here, after supposedly defeating Vecna once and for all, Will just moves on. That's not growth. That's inconsistency. Same with Mike. The show has never framed him as someone who lets things go easily. He spirals. He obsesses. He questions everything. Yet in the finale, he suddenly accepts closure with almost no resistance. The only way this behavior makes sense is if what we're watching isn't reality, but resolution being imposed on them. A version of events designed to feel final, not true. Vecna's greatest strength has never been physical power. It's control. Psychological control. Making people accept lies because they're easier than the truth. And that's exactly what the finale feels like. Not a victory. A settlement. That's why people didn't just dislike the ending. They rejected it. Because subconsciously, it doesn't behave like a Stranger Things ending. It behaves like something pretending to be one. And if that's intentional, then episode 9 isn't extra content. It's the moment the illusion breaks. We wait, we watch, and we let whatever's coming come. Because coincidences don't stack like this. They never have. I believe, and I don't believe in coincidences.